Welcome to the Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids Water Section Training. I'm Jennifer Hopenick-Redmond, the Program Director. This program is a partnership between RTI International and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, along with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction as a liaison. Together with my colleagues, including AJ Kondash, this training will overview how to participate in the water section of the program. The agenda for the lead and water section includes information on background, process overview, participant training, online enrollment, sample collection and shipping samples, understanding results and taking action, and how to contact us. Let's begin. First, we'll provide some background on lead in water. Lead is a metal that has been used in a variety of products, including paint, gasoline, and water piping, plumbing, and solder. Beginning in the 1970s, lead concentrations in air, dust, and soil began to decline in the United States, largely from phasing out lead as a gasoline additive and restricting the lead content in paint. However, lead hazards in water and in the paint of older buildings remain today. Lead is used in water infrastructure, including piping, plumbing, fixtures, and solder, with increasing restrictions over time. As lead has been used in water infrastructure, it's possible to be exposed to it at the tap. Exposure to lead is a public health concern, especially for children, because there's no safe level of lead exposure. Health effects are irreversible, lifelong, and cumulative as exposure continues. These may include issues with hearing, speech, the brain and central nervous system, growth, and development. Learning and behavior issues include lower IQ, decreased ability to pay attention, and underperformance in school. Lead in tap water is not typically found at the source or the water treatment plant. It usually gets into the water on the way to your tap from its presence in distribution piping and household plumbing, including fixtures. Water chemistry and use can also affect whether there's lead at the tap. If your building is served by a well, the well components can also be a source of lead. Federal efforts to reduce lead in drinking water are ongoing. These include restrictions on lead use in water infrastructure, health goals, and testing requirements. Initial water infrastructure restrictions went into effect in 1988, with 8% or less of lead in piping and plumbing and 0.2% in solder considered lead-free. Since 2014, lead-free water infrastructure is defined as 0.25% lead or below. In 1990, lead-lined water fountains were also banned in schools. Regarding health goals, the Environmental Protection Agency issued a maximum contaminant level goal of 0 parts per billion lead in water in 1991. They also set a treatment-based action level for public water systems of 15 parts per billion. There is still no federal enforceable health standard at the tap, so in 2016, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended that levels be below 1 part per billion in drinking water to protect children's health. Recently, the Environmental Protection Agency proposed revisions to the lead and copper rule, which would require utilities to test schools and centers in the future, with more details forthcoming. In North Carolina, there are also state-level requirements to address lead at the tap for child care centers and public schools. The rules require facilities to 1. Test for lead in drinking and cooking water, and 2. Mitigate taps with lead at or above the state action level. Water mitigation is included in the program for fixture replacement and filter installation. As this is a legislatively mandated effort to address lead hazards in drinking and cooking water at public schools and child care centers, North Carolina facilities are required by law to make sure all requirements are met. The Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids program is an expansion of the Clean Water for Carolina Kids program. Since July 2020, we've worked with child care centers and family child care homes to identify and eliminate lead in drinking and cooking water throughout North Carolina. To date, we've enrolled over 4,700 child care facilities and tested more than 25,000 samples. Detectable lead has been found in 92% of facilities and above the state action level in 12% of facilities. We also noticed significant variation in lead levels from tap to tap within the same building, which means that it's very important to test for lead at each tap used for drinking and cooking. Across the state, 3 in 100 water fountains and 4 in 100 kitchen sinks exceeded the state action level in our initial statewide testing for centers. We also found that detectable lead was common, with 1 in 5 fountains and 1 in 3 kitchen sinks containing at least some lead. Overall, factors associated with lead in water included using well water, pre-1988 buildings, and Head Start programs. Having one or more of these characteristics made it more likely that at least one tap would exceed the state action level for lead. Now let's get started with an overview of the lead and water section for the Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids program. If you are a child care center that is already tested with our original program, you will enroll in this program to sign up for retesting. If you are a child care center in a school, you will let the school add your tap so that you do not have to complete duplicate testing. For water testing and mitigation, our overall goal is to identify and eliminate exposure to lead in drinking and cooking water at public schools and child care facilities. Note that we are not testing other taps that are not used for consumption, like hand wash sinks. The main concern for lead exposure is ingesting contaminated water or eating foods prepared with water containing lead. Importantly, we use a participatory science approach for this section of the program. That means that we train you and your support staff, if needed, to enroll online, collect, and ship your samples. When we send you a sample kit or kits, one or more designated persons will collect and then ship those samples back to us. This is important because to collect water samples properly, the sample process must take place after water has not been used for 8 to 72 hours. By training facility staff, we are able to conduct testing statewide using the proper method and available resources in a shorter time frame. It also helps empower facilities to better understand water quality at the tap and make individual decisions on how to make improvements if needed. Mitigation is included for taps exceeding the state action level. This includes fixture replacement and installation of lead certified filters if needed. We communicate with you and recommend that you communicate with your community throughout. One of the most important things to overview today is how to designate what taps to sample for our program. This process affects the rest of your participation and can cause the most effort later if taps are improperly sampled. Let's overview how to properly designate taps for sampling now. The first step in designating what taps to sample is to inventory your facility's taps. Use your facility map and a checklist to create an electronic tap inventory by tap type. Taps used for consumption include drinking and food preparation or cooking. Taps not used for consumption include hand washing, showering, cleaning, landscaping, and this might include taps with motion sensor faucets. We have an example template in our drinking water management plan that you may use for this process. It's also important to start by properly labeling each tap on the location and name field so that others can later identify it. For example, water fountain number 1 is not a clear tap, but water fountain outside room 234 is descriptive enough for somebody else to identify it. The next step is to identify which taps you should include for water sampling in our program. You should only list taps used for drinking and food preparation because we're focused on water used for consumption, since that's the primary hazard for lead exposure. Drinking includes directly consuming water from a fountain, filling drinking water bottles or water coolers, using a tap for other beverages, and for food preparation, it may include boiling or cooking any foods, preparing infant formula, or washing raw fruits, vegetables, or other foods. These are the taps that you should list in your enrollment survey so they can be included in your sample kit. Before you finalize your inventory, though, you might want to review your facility's current water usage to identify if you want to change the designated use for any taps. For example, would you like to manage a smaller number of taps used in the classrooms for consumption? If so, you can designate those taps as not used for consumption with signage, which we have available online if you'd like templates for. You can also educate your community on where they should access drinking water for consumption, like the hallway water fountain, for example. You also should make sure that there's at least one tap per 100 students to still comply with state and federal building codes. For licensed childcare facilities, you should also confirm that you meet required sanitation guidelines. If you designate that these are not used for consumption in your final water inventory, you should not list these when you enroll. What about bathroom sinks and cleaning taps? These should not be used for consumption, so you can post signage at these taps that they are hand wash or cleaning only, not for consumption, and educate students and staff on where to fill up their water bottle. Do not include these when you enroll. After creating and reviewing your water tap inventory, it's time to finalize it and only include taps used for consumption in our program. Finalizing your inventory will save you time and resources long term and allow you to enroll and sample the taps that you really only need because you're using these for drinking and food preparation, and limit the number of taps that might require mitigation and maintenance long term. Note that taps should not be listed and will not be mitigated by RTI if they fall into the non-consumptive use category. These are the taps that are not used for drinking or cooking. This is especially important in large facility where there's many taps. So that means not sampling bathroom taps, hand wash sinks, and other taps that you are not using for drinking or food preparation. Next, just to make sure that you're clear on what taps to include, we'll provide some additional specific information. In the kitchen and cafeteria, you should collect water samples from the food prep taps that include all faucets and multi-compartment sinks, spray hoses used to fill pots for cooking, and pot fillers. Generally, any taps used for preparing food or beverages for consumption in a kitchen should be included. You should not include water samples and list these in your enrollment survey for any hand wash taps, even if it's a hand wash tap in a kitchen, because it's only used for hand washing and not for preparation of food or beverages. Do not list it. You might also have mop, janitorial, or cleaning taps in a kitchen. Again, since they're not used for cooking or drinking, and they're instead used for cleaning and janitorial purposes, do not list these. You also should not list non-plumbed in appliances. These are any peripheral appliances that might use tap water at the facility, but you might actually collect it in a pitcher and then pour it into a coffee maker or some kettles, for example. Additional dishwashing taps that are only used for washing dishes and cooking utensils, but not used for food preparation, also can be excluded. Note that childcare centers that only have a multi-compartment sink that would also include using it for dishwashing, they should still test all faucets from multi-compartment sinks. This is for an additional dishwashing tap only. In the kitchen and cafeteria, you also have the option to collect water samples from plumbed-in appliances if you choose. Plumbed-in refers to a water hose or line connected directly to the appliance. This could be ice makers, steam ovens, steamer tilting kettles, and soup makers. Facilities may choose to sample the inside of the appliance where feasible. If you do so, make sure to only sample in the appliance as you start turning the water on. Do not sample behind the appliance or unhook or unplug the appliance. If you can't collect a water sample inside after it's turned on, do not include it. Additionally, follow-up support outside of clean classrooms may be necessary to accurately determine the lead source and appropriate mitigation actions. Follow-up support and mitigation costs for plumbed-in appliances are not covered by RTI if you choose to sample these appliances. Facilities are responsible for mitigating or restricting access in these cases. In the classroom, you should collect water samples from food prep or drinking taps. This includes any tap used for preparing food or beverages for consumption. You should not collect water samples from hand washing taps. And in licensed childcare facilities, you should not include water samples from food prep hand wash sinks. This name makes it confusing, but in fact, this is a hand wash sink. So do not list these when you enroll. Centers should not list food prep hand wash sinks. Throughout your facility, you should collect water samples from bottle fillers and water fountains. And if you have a specific tap in the locker room that's used for water bottle or water cooler fill up for sports, list that as well. You should not collect water samples from bathroom or locker room hand wash taps or showers, eye wash sinks or safety showers, laundry, janitorial, mop, or utility taps, and outdoor hoses or spigots. Do not collect water samples from those items. Confirm clear and concise location and tap names before you fill out your survey. This really should be the final process for your drinking water inventory. The information you provide will guide your sampling process and how we create your chain of custody document. This is an example one above. The chain of custody document will have up to 18 taps per document and will be included in the order you should collect samples in your sampling kit. It will be organized first by building, if you have multiple buildings, then grouped by zone. A zone could be something like a floor, wing, or hallway within your facility to make sure you're sampling one area of your facility at a time. Within each zone, you'll list a location, such as a room or identifiable landmark, then tap type, such as drinking water fountain, bottle filler, or classroom bubbler. With all of this information, our goal is to know exactly which samples correspond to which tap types. Finally, now that you've got a list of taps to sample, we recommend that you use this inventory and incorporate it into a formal drinking water management plan. A drinking water management plan will help your facility, one, understand and follow designated tap uses now and in the future, two, ensure water management practices like flushing occurs, three, maintain any installed filter replacements as needed, four, conduct routine maintenance and perform periodic retesting as needed. In turn, you can also communicate that your facility strives to provide all staff and students with lead-free tap water. As part of a drinking water management plan for your facility, we also ask to check if your facility has a lead service line in your enrollment survey, as these were historically used in some facilities to connect water mains into the building. To do so, you will need a magnet, a tool like a screwdriver, and the location where your water enters the building. The basic steps are as follows. Step 1, locate where the water line enters the building. Typically, this is the basement or the lowest level. Look for the water meter and identify the inlet valve going into the building. If it's plastic, this is the last step. If it's metal, go to step 2. Scratch off rust or corrosion on the outside of the pipe. Find a place to examine and use the metal tool to scratch it off. If there's a covering around the pipe, you uncover or unwrap the pipe first. Step 3, see if a magnet sticks to the pipe. If a magnet sticks, the pipes must be galvanized steel. If the magnet does not stick, then next check the color of the pipe. They must be lead or copper. You can distinguish between these by the color. Lead pipe is typically silver or gray, and copper pipe is typically the color of a penny. You can watch our How to Check for Lead and Galvanized Steel Service Lines video on our training resources page if you're interested. After you complete enrollment with your taps used for consumption, get ready for your sampling kits. Your sampling kit will be prepared and shipped directly to the physical address you provided. If you signed up when outside of your priority grouping, or if we're at capacity, you may not receive your box right away. We will notify you via email of updates when your sample kit ships. You can take this time before the kit ships to finalize your sampling plan, including who will help and when it will take place. There will be up to 18 sample bottles per box, so if you have more than that many drinking and cooking taps at your facility, you will receive multiple boxes. Keep an eye out for one or more UPS boxes with a Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids sticker, and make sure you alert administrative staff so they do not inadvertently get thrown out. Each box has its own chain of custody instructions. We recommend that you do not mix sample bottles and chain of custody documents with other boxes. Sample in the order listed on the chain of custody document using the bottles labeled in each box. Next, AJ is going to walk you through the specific online enrollment process, followed by the sample collection and shipping process, so you're ready to go.
Thanks, Jenny. So the first step to testing your facility is to complete your online enrollment survey. The following section will walk you through each step of the enrollment process. When you log into your facility dashboard, you can see the progress for each section in the program, including lead and water, lead-based paint, and asbestos. Throughout the process, you can view your facility's progress through the program. A green check mark indicates that the step is completed, while empty circle indicates that you still have to complete that program. To the left, you can navigate through the menu and view the facility team, which includes all members that have created an account in the portal for your facility. After watching this video, you will see a green check mark next to the lead and water section trainings, indicating that you now have access to complete the lead and water enrollment survey. The enrollment survey includes 5 different sections: welcome, building information, student demographics, water taps, and finalize. All questions throughout the survey are required to be answered before you can submit your survey for our team review. If any information is missing, you'll be directed to fix the issue prior to submitting. If the lead-based paint or asbestos enrollment survey has already been completed, the responses will auto-populate for the welcome, building information, and student demographics sections. You won't have to fill them out again. Primary contact is responsible for reviewing all auto-populated information. It is important that information is carefully reviewed for accuracy because the responses here will affect other questions in the enrollment survey and ultimately next steps for your facility. Once you have completed each section, you will be directed to finalize your survey. You can sign out and come back to submit the survey at any time. However, you will need to save your progress on each page. In the welcome section, you can add any staff who should receive email notification updates about your facility's progress through the lead and water section of the program. You may add staff who are not logged into the portal, but if these staff would like to view or edit your facility's enrollment survey, they must attend the pre-enrollment webinar to gain access to your dashboard. The physical addresses we have on file for your facility will already be listed when you begin your survey. You may add additional addresses or modify existing addresses and can indicate the address type, such as physical or shipping address. It is required that each facility list at least one physical address and one shipping address where you'd like to receive your water sampling kit. After the welcome section, you will be directed to enter building information, including facility type, number and age of buildings, what your water sources are, and any scheduled operations. Here you'll list out each individual building and its year built. If you don't know the year it was built, then you can enter a range or an estimate. In the student demographics section, you will be asked to enter the number of students enrolled during the last year, the percent eligible for free or reduced lunch, and race or ethnicity student percentages. You will then reach the water tap section. This is where you will add all taps in your facility that are used for drinking or cooking. You'll select the building, floor, or zone and tap type. The location name should be identifiable for others. You will also note whether the tap is filtered and whether the fixture is replaced after 2014. You will start in the kitchen or cafeteria, then move onward through hallway water fountains, gyms, and locker rooms, outside and playground areas, classrooms, and finally any other taps outside of those areas. Once all of your cooking and drinking taps have been added, you will note the number of taps that are not used for cooking or drinking, as those taps will not be sampled as part of this program. We will send you a template for signs that you can print out and mount that clearly designate each tap that should not be used for cooking or drinking. If you're not sure which taps to designate as for drinking or cooking water use only, we have helpful videos and more instructions to follow. Now that you've entered all required information and are ready to submit your enrollment survey, you'll be notified if any information is missing, and you can easily jump back to that section to fix an error. You will need to agree to follow the sampling process instructions before clicking the Submit Enrollment Survey button. Next, we'll overview the participant water sampling process. This is all documented in our helpful how-to video that we'll show now and also be posted separately on our how-to page.
Hi, I'm Crystal.
I'm AJ.
I'm Erin. And I'm Jenny.
And
we're with the Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids team. We're here to help you understand how to participate in the water section of our program. Your box will be where you normally receive packages. The box will be rectangular in shape, and there are 18 bottles per box. So if you have more than 18 taps for drinking and cooking, you will receive more than one box, for example, here.
Let's
Get ready to sample! Once you receive your sample kit and confirm all of the contents inside, you can set a date to sample. Once you set a date to sample, make sure you put it on your calendar, the school calendar, and you alert others that typically are in the building. And you can set a phone alert and email your staff. Make sure you communicate to your school community not to use any water in the building until you complete sample collection the day of sampling. If water has been used in the prior 8 hours, do not collect samples that day and wait and go back another day. We want to know what's in that first sip. The longer that water sits in piping and plumbing, the more likely that we may find lead at the tap. This is why we collect first draw water samples, typically after an overnight period where water is not used for at least 8 hours, or after a weekend when people are away. If your facility is closed for the summer, holidays, or more than 72 hours, you must take additional steps, which you can follow on a QR code here on our water sample instructions, to flush taps 2 to 3 days before sampling. Let's collect our samples.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I grabbed box 1, which I did. I've already set up everything I need here. So we're going to follow the order of bottles on our chain of custody document, starting with the lowest numbered sample. So in this case, I have sample 01, which is our first sample we're going to collect. After I collect sample 1, I'm going to fill out my date and time of collection on my chain of custody, and then move on to collect sample bottle number 2. So you can see here, sample 0002.
Just confirming this is box 1?
Yep, in the bottom here you can see box 1 of 2.
Okay, now it's time to sample. So when we go ahead and sample, you will open the lid and make sure that you do not touch the inside of the lid or the inside of the bottle. Place the lid facing up, and then you'll turn the tap on as you normally would with normal flow, and make sure you do not overflow it and stop before the end. Take the lid and put it on tight, give it a tug, and you're done. Okay, now that I collected my first water sample, I'm going to write the date and the time of sample collection, and then go to the next sample. Avoid common mistakes like washing your hands before collecting first draw water samples.
Or removing the aerator from your sink before you collect a sample.
Or not using water normally in the building the week before.
And if your school is closed the week before you collect samples, use our flushing guidance to flush your taps 2 to 3 days before you collect your samples.
And make sure that you don't turn off any shut-off valves for the taps before you sample. If you come in and you notice that somebody has used water in the building, do not start your sample collection and set a date and time for another day.
So tips for water fountains. At least 72 hours before you sample, you'll want to go and see where water hits the faucet. So you'll come in with a Sharpie and mark off where that hits. For the water bottles, you want to come in at an angle, and if you miss some of it, it's all right. You can just keep filling it up and make a note on the COC.
If you have water fountains that have been shut off since the pandemic, you should turn them on and flush them 2 to 3 days before your sample collection date so that you can use them in the future, even if you do plan to shut them off again. Okay, so this is a high-low water fountain, and it has a lower tap, a higher tap, and a bottle filler. So this will actually be listed as 3 separate taps in your enrollment survey, so you should have 3 bottles.
This is the next bottle in the chain of custody document. Remember, when you open it, don't touch inside of the bottle or the cap. Carefully place it right side up and fill your bottle to the top of the neck. Give it a tug and you're all set.
Let's ship our samples.
So as I collected samples with my team, we filled in the date of collection and time of collection for each tap. Now that we've sampled everything in our facility that we use for drinking and cooking, we're ready to ship our samples back to RTI. So the first thing that I'm going to do is fill out the chain of custody document, noting who led the sample collection and the date and time. And if you had any other issues that you want to note in the comments section here. You can also check all that apply at the top, including if you sampled when the facility was operating normally, if you sampled when the facility was closed for more than 3 days, and showing that you performed the recommended flushing guidance if you did sample when you were closed. Okay, now that I dated and signed my chain of custody document, I need to make sure that I checked all that apply here too. So I sampled when the facility was operating normally, which means that it hasn't been closed for more than 3 days. And once I finished that, you're going to put the chain of custody document in this smaller Ziploc bag. I'll take out the label here, and you want to zip this up to make sure no water gets the paper wet. And then the next thing that you want to do is put all of your sampled water bottles together in the large Ziploc bag. If you did have 18 bottles in your kit, it will fill the box. So you want to put the bottles on their side, 6 to a row, and stack it 3 rows high. And then you'll go ahead and you'll also close this large Ziploc bag. Make sure you don't have extra air in there. Okay. Next step will be to fill the bottles into the bag, laying it flat. Okay, once you get the sample bottles back in the box, make sure you put your chain of custody in the box as well. Stick that inside. Put your bubble wrap at the top here. And then you are going to take the label and place the label over your old label like so. Take the sticky off, tape it, and then find some packing tape and tape the top. And you're ready to call UPS for pickup. Okay, I think we're all done with sampling and ready to schedule the UPS pickup now.
Okay, there's a website or a number. I'll give them a call and have them come pick up.
Sounds great. Yeah, it says it's 1-800-742-5877. If you call after 7 a.m. and before 10 a.m., they'll come the same day.
Hi, I'd like to schedule a UPS pickup.
You need your phone number and tracking number.
Oh, the tracking number is 1Z2. What's the confirmation number? Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. We can go ahead and put the box outside where we normally do our pickups. And it says here that samples must be shipped back within 10 days. So let's just make sure they do actually come and pick them up.
Great. Now we've collected all of our samples. We've got them packed up and ready to ship. We've called UPS and scheduled pickup. So I'm going to put them outside in our classic pickup location, and we're going to wait for UPS to pick them up. If I notice that the box is still there tomorrow after UPS was supposed to pick them up, I'll call again.
Let's view our results.
Okay, now that you've gotten your results back, and you may have some taps that have levels at or above the state action level. And so what we're gonna do is tape those off. So we're gonna put this sign up, and it lets folks know that they should not use the tap for drinking or cooking until mitigation has occurred. And because this has 2 parts, we're gonna put the sign up on both.
Okay, so this tap came back with lead at or above the state action level. So we received a sign that notes to not use it for drinking or cooking while repairs are in process. So we're going to go ahead and place the sign here. We're also going to make sure that staff and students know to only use this for hand washing until repairs confirm that we mitigated the lead. Okay, so we successfully mitigated this tap. The fixture was replaced with a new fixture, and a filter was also installed because this tap is used for drinking and cooking in this classroom. So we're going to take this sign down now that we confirmed with our post-mitigation sampling that mitigation was effective. And we have a new sign that says this tap can be used for drinking and cooking. And we're going to place this so we formally designate this tap for drinking and cooking and share this with staff and students.
All right, so here we are in the bathroom, and these sinks were not sampled as part of the program because we designated them as hand wash only. So I printed out some signs that were provided, and I'm going to post them to let people know that these sinks should only be used for washing hands.
Thanks for participating in our program.
All taps that are or will be used for cooking and drinking should be tested, even if they're currently turned off. If your facility is closed for more than 72 hours, like over holiday breaks, or you have a tap or fountain that has not been used for more than 3 days, we do recommend that you run the water at those taps for several minutes the Friday before you sample. This will flush out any water that's been sitting in the tap since it has been turned off for a while. It is important that you do not flush on the Monday before you sample, though. If you would rather test your fountain later, we suggest you place "Do not use" signs on it, a bag, or tape so that children and staff can't use the fountain. The new sanitation guidelines that are part of this rule require that you get it tested before you begin using it. Since our grant funding only covers one round of testing and mitigation per site, you may have to pay additionally to get those samples tested. A few helpful sampling tips before we conclude. First, save the box. You'll need it to ship the samples back to RTI. Second, sample before anyone has used water in your building for at least 8 hours or up to 72 hours, ideally, on a Monday morning or over the weekend. Sample taps in the order provided on the chain of custody form. Match the number on the sample bottle to the number on your chain of custody form to make sure you're sampling the right bottle at the right time. Fill each sample bottle to the neck or the top without overflowing it for sufficient amount for water analysis. Make sure you sign and date your chain of custody form and include it in the shipped box. And finally, call UPS right after sampling for same-day pickup. We've already paid for the return mailing label and pickup, so all you have to do is call and they'll come pick it up for you. Next, we'll show you how to ship your samples back to RTI. You will ship your samples back to RTI in the same box they came in. After checking that each bottle is closed tightly, place them into the large bag and seal it. Each box fits 18 bottles. Make sure to complete your chain of custody document as you sample and include it in the box. Put the chain of custody document back in its own plastic bag to ensure it stays dry. Place the new shipping label over the previous one and close and reseal the box using the shipping tape provided or the resealable box. Finally, schedule a pickup at ups.com or you can call UPS at 1-800-742-5877 anytime after 7 a.m. If you call before 10 a.m., UPS will come the same day. You can then place your box outside for UPS to pick up. Next, we'll review what happens with samples when they come to our lab. Once RTI receives your sampling kit, they'll be logged in and checked for pH and turbidity. Then they'll be analyzed via EPA method 200.8 for lead in drinking water. We are credited within the state of North Carolina to analyze these samples and perform QA and QC for scientifically rigorous results. Now we'll overview what the results mean. Once your results are ready, you will receive an email notification that they are available to view in your portal. They will also post online on your facility data mapper after 5 business days for the public to see. This will help meet communication requirements for your facility's community while also giving you a chance to turn off any taps and list temporary mitigation actions for any taps at or above the state action level. You will receive sampling results for each tap, along with customized recommendations that can be taken based on the concentration of lead in each tap. Because there's no safe level of lead exposure for children, we do recommend that you take protective, no-cost measures at all drinking and cooking water taps, and we call this practicing clean water habits. For taps with lead concentrations above 1 part per billion, we recommend low-cost risk mitigation measures. For taps with lead concentrations greater than 5 parts per billion, we strongly recommend you taking these low-cost risk mitigation measures. And finally, for taps at or above the state action level of 10 parts per billion, you should stop water use immediately, post a do not use sign at that tap, and our program will reach out to you to provide mitigation support. Once you receive your results, there are several ways you can take action. This section overviews voluntary risk mitigation measures that facilities can take on their own for taps with lead below the state action level, along with required risk mitigation for taps exceeding the state action level. No-cost clean water habits are helpful regardless of your facility results. These include habits such as only using cold water for drinking or cooking, even when you're going to boil water. Hot water can pull more lead into the water from your pipes. Another recommendation is to designate lead-free taps for drinking and cooking, post proper signage, and communicate why it is important to use only those taps for drinking and cooking with your community. Another clean water habit is to flush water regularly, especially after weekends, holidays, or extended closures, to make sure lead's not accumulating in your pipes. Low-cost risk mitigation actions can include replacing faucet fixtures with certified lead-free faucets, installing and maintaining a certified water filter to remove lead, or installing a bottle-filling water fountain with a built-in filter. These steps can be taken for any taps that contain lead below 10 parts per billion voluntarily by the facility, but our program will pay for mitigation of taps with lead at or above the state action level of 10 parts per billion. We have information on lead-free fixtures, lead-certified filters, and more on our website that you can use if you'd like to voluntarily mitigate any taps below the state action level. Note that these same low-cost solutions will be employed for taps exceeding the state action level of 10 parts per billion, with the cost covered by our program until resources are expended. If we find that a tap is at or above the state action level of 10 parts per billion, water mitigation is required, and the program will contact you to coordinate mitigation. In the interim, you should restrict use at each tap by posting signs notifying staff and students not to use it for drinking or cooking. You can also tape over it or turn it off. You may need to provide alternative drinking and cooking water, which can be another tap in the building that tested below the state action level. If a tap is found to have lead levels at or above 150 parts per billion, we will ship another sampling kit with 2 bottles per tap to further investigate the source of lead. This is because filters and tap replacement may not be effective at reducing lead levels this high. Make sure to also communicate findings to your community. You can use our communication toolkit to do this, and our facility data mapper to share results with the online link. These results, again, will be posted 5 business days after you first receive them. Required water mitigation will occur for taps exceeding the state action level of 10 parts per billion. This may include replacing faucet fixtures, water fountains, or installing lead-certified water filters. You can choose whether to receive those materials and whether you'd like our program team to complete on-site mitigation. If your facility has a tap that requires risk mitigation, we will send a pre-mitigation survey to collect information needed to coordinate your facility's mitigation. In this survey, our program will ask you to collect photos of the taps with lead at or above the state action level. We will also send temporary signs that you can print and hang up with identifying information so that it's clear which taps need to be mitigated when we send our mitigation team. During the pre-mitigation survey, you have the option to choose from 3 categories of support for our program. A, we will provide you with mitigation materials and personnel to conduct mitigation. B, will provide you with mitigation materials and let your own facility staff or handy person handle installation. Or C, you can choose to mitigate taps with your own materials and personnel. If you choose B or C, we may not be able to reimburse you for the full amount or cost of those changes. Follow-up sampling is required for taps with lead at or above 150 parts per billion because filters are not certified to remove lead above this level, and we want to better understand the source of lead in this tap. The follow-up sampling kits will contain 2 sample bottles for each tap, along with sampling instructions and a chain of custody document. The 2 bottles will be used to collect a first draw sample and a 30-second flush sample, which helps identify if the source of lead is close to the tap, like the faucet or nearby plumbing components, or far away in other parts of your building's plumbing or the distribution system. After mitigation is complete, a local or regional environmental health specialist will contact you to schedule a visit. They will collect samples at your mitigated tap to make sure the mitigation is effective. If post-mitigation results are at or above the state action level of 10 parts per billion, alternative taps or water supplies will be needed. If the results remain high after the regional or local environmental health specialist visit, we can share your results with your water utility and the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality to consider additional funding support to fix those issues. Communication is a critical element throughout the participation process. You have an obligation to communicate plans, results, and actions to your school or center community. We are available to support you in this and have developed materials and language for you to share with your community if you need it. We recommend that you communicate with your community throughout your facility's participation in the program. This includes informing families and staff before completing sampling and sharing results and mitigation plans. We've also developed a communication toolkit that has templates for notification emails, draft newsletters, talking points, and social media tiles you can share. We've also developed reference documents such as program overview flyers, understanding rule requirements, and how to create and designate taps. All facility results will be available on our online facility data mapper 5 business days after they are directly provided to your facility. This allows facilities time to restrict tap use as needed and start the mitigation process, while also making it easy for facilities to communicate results to staff, parents, and students. The program results summary is also updated in real time online and shows facility enrollment, completion, and corresponding results through time. When results are ready, we will send you an individualized report for your facility. In addition to your individualized report, your results will be posted in our facility data mapper, which is designed for facilities and your community to view the results and share them. Facilities will have access to this page 5 business days prior to results being shared publicly to give you an opportunity to list any mitigation actions or temporary measures you're taking prior to full mitigation. Our mapper shows results for each tap and any risk mitigation steps you list. Any mitigation activities conducted by our program will automatically be listed. Facilities can also update their page to include any mitigation actions taken for taps with voluntary mitigation, such as those that measured under the state action level of 10 parts per billion. All results will be posted to our public mapper, which can be used to share your results with your community. There will be a 5 business day delay between when facilities receive their results and when the results are shared for the public. In those 5 days, your facility should view your results and take actions accordingly. For any taps greater than 10 parts per billion, turn them off and post do not use signage. Develop a management plan and create communication materials to share with your community. You should also fill out the mitigation survey. You should also fill out the pre-mitigation survey to report mitigation actions that you'd like to take. All right, we'll pause for a minute to address a few common questions that come up while completing the enrollment survey. First, can a facility sample while closed? In short, yes. If you use our sample when closed guidance, you'll flush water through your taps to simulate regular use and then wait a few days and collect your samples. You'll find a link on our website and in your sampling kit instructions with guidance for flushing. Next, if you are in city water, do you still need to sample? Yes, so lead is a contaminant that enters drinking water from the distribution piping, in-building plumbing, and indoor fixtures. While cities and water utilities do test their water regularly, especially at schools, this testing is designed to identify issues with the public water supplies distribution system, not at specific taps or plumbing within your school. This program's testing will ensure each of the taps you use for drinking or cooking water are tested and mitigated if needed. Third, does this program cost anything? No, this program's free for all schools and child care facilities to test drinking and cooking water. Mitigation is also covered for fixture replacement and filter installation at all taps exceeding or meeting the state action level of 10 parts per billion. Finally, does the program include private schools? The state rule only applies to public schools and charter schools. So thank you so much for joining and taking steps to reduce childhood lead and asbestos exposure. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact our team at www.cleanwaterforuskids.org/Carolina/contact, or you can follow this shorter link here. The Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids team is here to help you throughout our entire program. Now we'll take some time to answer any questions you do have, so feel free to raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or we will unmute you and read any questions posted in the chat or Q&A box as well.